What terrified you as a kid that isn't scary now? My grandmother's wallpaper at night. Opening the shower curtain, I was sure there was some monster or murderer waiting for me behind it. My bedroom as a kid was a den converted into a bedroom/laundry room, and one wall was covered in a black mirror with gold paint flecks, very 70s. But at night the shadows combined with the dark glass and paint made me imagine faces, figures, etc. It really scared me, and I would line up my stuffed animals along my bed to protect me. Catching fire. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to get set on fire at all, but the amount of stop, drop, and roll lessons I got in kindergarten made me think this was going to be a once-a-year thing at asterisk minimum. Asking my grandpa a question. Man, was he intimidating to talk to as a kid. Now I love talking to him when I can. Bees and wasps. Paint. I thought if you got it on you it would never come off, since it never came off of the walls. There was a huge abandoned windmill in our neighborhood that once pumped water from the river. At random, the windmill blades would start to turn at night, never in the day. As kids that used to hang out nearby, it felt like the windmill was haunted as it came to life at dark hours. That worms would come out of my shower head. A straight row of fully grown trees. Grew up in the desert. Trees were around but not packed densely, and were mostly Palo Verde trees or palm trees. But there was a row of trees that looked like what I consider most would imagine typical trees look like. And that one row of trees was also in close proximity to a large prison. My brother told me that's where Mr. Boogdy lived and where the escaped murderers would hide when they'd break out of prison. Oh yeah, did I mention we had a guy break out of prison and murder the town librarian when I was a kid? So. Yeah. Tree lines. Edited to add, in my haste last night I did not go and fact check my childhood memories. I had conflated escaped inmates and the librarian murder into the same story. It's not. What I was confused about was the memory of my dad picking me up on my walk home from school. Normally I would walk past the library, because he knew that the search for the murderer of the librarian was ongoing. And there were a few times we locked down the school and the rumor mill was that there was a prisoner escape. I have no idea on how I could verify that or not. Although, there have been prisoners that have taken correctional officers as hostages and a librarian at the prison as a hostage in attempts to escape. The Beast from the Sandlot. Freaked me out back then, but now that I can see how low budget the dog looks, still an amazing movie by the way, I find it a bit less scary. The video for Michael Jackson's Thriller. Thunderstorms. I used to hide under the covers and could only run from the room between flashes. Now I will sit at the window and watch. I love a good thunderstorm now. All it took was a, very weird, 9-ish-year-old me to stand at the window during a big storm and yell things like, "Is that all you've got?" Yeah, kinda like Lieutenant Dan, but before I ever saw Forrest Gump. The little doll guys from the movie 9. Jesus randomly showing up during dinner, I thought had used the door, clearly I was raised to fear the wrath of God. Edited, thank you for my first awards. Flushing the toilet. The Dark. The movie Jeepers Creepers. Large Marge. Opening a can of Pillsbury biscuits. Just waiting for that pop. After unraveling the paper. Spooky. I was always afraid of Baby Bell cheese. Not sure why, but I'm over it now that I'm older. Running up the basement stairs after turning off the light. My ever-growing apathy towards life took out most fears. Foot hanging off the bed and monsters can get me. Good. I have work in the morning. Hades from Hercules. Thistles and cacti. Basically any plant that had nasty spikes. Whenever I'd walk in a grass field and see a tiny thistle plant near my foot, I would stop dead in my tracks and call for help. Nowadays, I still get uneased at the thought of falling onto those things, especially the giant thistles. Being spanked. The Bermuda Triangle, I've encountered it a lot less than I thought I would have. Escalators. The THX logo edit, thank you. My first award. Literally my own shadow. Cicadas. Or more precisely, their sound. Also dragonflies. For the same reason. Gorillas. That SpongeBob episode as a kid scarred me. I would have to close my eyes once that part came on, and my brother had to tell me when it was over. My uncle, knowing I was scared of it, told me killer gorillas lived in the dark part of the basement, so every time I went down there for something, I'd sprint full speed back up the stairs. Velociraptors. Nothing. Everything is 1,000,000 times scarier now than it was when I was a kid. Edit. Thanks for the awards, folks. Glad to see I'm not the only one who thinks being a grown-up is scarier than we could have possibly imagined. That pipe's screensaver from Windows. I had nightmares getting crushed by them. When I rarely get them now, I sometimes can use them for lucid dreaming. So I win? The Chucky. Sun death. Also, I cried when I saw a black woman for the first time. A stuffed, dead pheasant my dad shot while hunting. It scared me so much he had to keep it in the garage. Seeing a scary thumbnail on a YouTube video and randomly think of it throughout the day. Thanks to Goosebumps, I was afraid of loofahs, sponges, and those little poof ball things you wash off with. I didn't get over this stupid fear into adulthood after I got married. E.T. I swore he lived in my bedroom closet. I watched the movie with my cousins on Thanksgiving when I was little, and to this day I've never watched the whole thing. It doesn't terrify me anymore, but I just don't have any desire to watch it. The space under the bed. Dinosaurs. I knew they were extinct, but I was still terrified of a T-Rex pulling the roof off my house and eating me. This one is completely random. The song, One Way or Another, scared me so badly me as a child. I would cover my ears when it played. My big sister worked at the skating rink and would do double duty babysitting me while she worked. They played that song exactly one time while we were there. I freaked out. It was dark in there and the song was loud and coming from everywhere. They had this little coin-operated cartoon booth, sort of like a photo booth, get in, draw the curtain, but instead of a camera, there is a television. You put in a quarter and it plays a random cartoon. I hid in there, scream, crying and kicking anyone who tried to check on me with roller skate-clad feet. They turned the music off completely so that my sister could get me out of the booth. My sister made sure that they never played it while I was there again. Another time we were watching The Muppet Show and there was a pretty blonde woman hosting. Then this starts singing One Way with a bunch of fucking monsters. I jumped up and ran to my room and hid in my closet. I couldn't trust my favorite TV shows anymore either. I have no idea why I was so afraid of that song, but it genuinely terrified me. I like it fine now. The movie Mars Attacks. Balloons. Specifically, balloons popping. When I was really young, my dad popped one near my face as a joke, but it really traumatized me. I hated going to birthday parties because there were always games where you had to pop a balloon in some form. Fantasia Mickey. Pretty sure it was a nightmare that started it, but I was terrified of him for several years. My sisters then thought it was funny to hide a little figurine of him in my room and move it around at random to scare me even more. The Unsolved Mysteries theme music. Hearing that, then stories of missing kids and ghosts led to many sleepless nights as a kid. Adult me binge watches the show now. /SHARKS/ Quicksand. Coffee pot, makes a boiling/gurgling sound. 5-year-old me waking up, WTF is in this house? Bad grades. Can't get bad grades if you're not in school anymore. The part in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island when the ghost pirate shows up in the video footage. I used to think a kidney was a knee shaped like a kid where the kidney lives in the body. Being 30. When you're a teenager, 30 is old. The FBI warnings on VHS tapes. For some reason I connected that with the infomercials for random junk you could call and buy that would say our agents are standing by, thinking that FBI agents were standing outside my house to make sure I didn't sell copies of the tapes that I owned and use the money to buy Time Life cassette collections and crappy kitchen gadgets. Death. Animatronics. Okay, they're still kinda scary. Toilets. The dark. Now, I love it, but I slept with a nightlight till I was almost 12. Talking to people. The Candyman movie. Wizard of Oz flying monkeys. The Bermuda Triangle. Thought that was going to be a big problem when I was a kid. Pennywise. Keeping my closet door opened when going to bed used to freak me out. The living spaghetti that crawls around Swedish chef's kitchen as he bangs it with his frying pan used to freak me the out as a kid. I mean, tornadoes are still scary now if you're in the path of one, but when I was a kid I obsessed over them to the point of developing OCD, so I'd definitely say I've improved. Weeds, when I would swim in a lake. I always thought the weeds were like the arms of the lake and were coming to grab my legs. Chucky. It used to be scary doll with a knife. Now it's doll with knife. When your greatest fear is plastic that you can kick and send flying, it's no longer a fear. My feet or hands hanging over the edge of the bed. Yeast. I've been hiking since I was a kid and I was well aware that you should never eat any mushrooms you find since they're most likely poisonous. Plus, a lot of my family is allergic to mushrooms. Well, we did a science experiment involving yeast when I was in first grade, and when I heard it was a fungus, I lost it. Nightmare at 10,000 feet, Twilight Zone. Tremors, strangers, drugs. Probably not the only person in the thread to say this, but being home alone used to scare me. It didn't always, and sometimes I was okay with it, but there were times when I was home alone at 11 or 12 that I would suddenly get this creeping and gradually intensifying sense of dread that something evil was in the house with me, keeping out of sight. It got especially bad if it was getting dark outside. I was really scared of starting to hear things, like something walking around in another room, or a faucet turning on, so I would keep music blasting over the stereo to drown out any hallucinatory sounds. Most of the time I wasn't too scared, but there were a few times when I was borderline terrified. And the thing is, there was nothing actually scary about our house. It wasn't haunted, none of us ever noticed anything creepy or out of the ordinary, and I never had any paranormal or spooky experiences as a child. It's just that being home alone would set my imagination running. To this day, in my mid-30s, I sometimes have nightmares about being a kid again in our empty house, with only my sister with me. In those dreams we're usually waiting for our parents to get back as the sun sets, the house gets gradually darker, and a sense of fear starts to settle over us. Even at 34, those dreams still scare the out of me when I wake up from them. But fortunately, being at my house alone doesn't. Are you afraid of the dark? I still don't understand how that was a children's show. Shots. Sam the Eagle from the Muppets. He haunted my nightmares. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content every day.